Hello, everybody, and I am back for my 20th, 21st biweekly reader. I cannot remember the number, and it's such a small factor to me that I don't care. All right. Anyways, let's go ahead and jump right into the books that I read for the past 2 weeks. So, the first one was The Stone of Farewell. Oh man, so this was such a huge step up from book one. I loved this book to bits. I mean, I, ah, for book one, I had to take the time to really see what was going on, really connect to these characters, and really start to fall in love with them. And then, of course, with the climax of book one, things started to click into place. Now, with book two, The Stone of Farewell, I'm finally. So this is. I can't believe. This is a trilogy Memories Are Thorn by Tad Williams. And I. With book one, as I said, it was definitely a bit of a slow start and very slow for me. But with book two, it just felt like I could see it all. I actually had this problem with Realm of the Elderlings at first. It felt very slow. It felt like things weren't really happening. But once you start to fall in love with the characters, once you start to fall in love with the people who we're being told about, it becomes so much easier to fall into those smaller moments because it's about those smaller people. It's about them in their small moments and then watching those small moments build and build and build and build and build and build and then boom, off to the races. I loved it so much, and the way this book builds off book one was phenomenal. The way Joshua's gang, their journey, Joshua's journey across this book was just so fascinating, and he is kind of, I don't want to say a legendary figure in our heads, but maybe in our hearts. That's how he's built because it, he is flawed, of course, but we're not seeing him from his perspective. We're seeing Joshua through someone else's perspective, and I think it adds this extra layer to really being able to understand Joshua. There's a purpose to that. It creates a sense of distance between us and Joshua that I think really adds a little bit of pizzazz to him, you know? It makes us wonder what's going on in his head. What is he thinking? Of course, we do get moments in Joshua's head, and those moments are very satisfying because I don't think actually I think Tad Williams does something very brilliant with Joshua here because now it's clicking what he was doing. I think that we see Joshua from the outside, and that allows us to really see the flawed thinking that he himself thinks, if you get what I mean. And I think it's so well done. I love it so much. And then Simon. Oh, Simon. I heard Simon was a little weak from other people who've read this book. And I disagree. I just think Simon was outstanding in this book. I think he was even better than in book one. And he's in that place, you know? I think we've all been there. And it's a very brief span of time, 6 months to a year, something like that, where you're starting a transition. That transition from your childhood self into this mindset that is going to carry you on for the rest of your life. It's so fascinating that this is what the book tackles because I love it. I think it's so very interesting because we what's the word? We get to see how he deals with grief. We get to see how he deals with traumatic events, and we get to see how he deals with all the things that occurred in the past book and it's so wonderful. It's such an interesting deep dive that I just love it. And then there are certain other characters I love going back to the place where everything started. We're on this journey with everybody else, but Tad Williams doesn't forget to remind us of where this story started. He comes back to it. He lets us see into the minds of the common person and see their love for just people. There's a certain character I have in mind, but I feel like it'd be a spoiler to say that we get points of view from that character. But I think it adds so much. It adds a little bit of pizzazz. And then, of course, is Miriam L. Oh, Miriam L. I love her. Throughout this book, she was so good, by the way. I think especially around the midpoint, she was just outstanding. Because that whole midpoint section, like everything, what was really weird about this book, and I don't know if anybody else who's read the book will agree with me, but the center of the book and the end of the book are both like different climaxes to the story. It's really wonderful. There's a very interesting structure to analyze for the Stone of Farewell. It's so weird, but I love it. It's like it is really a weird structure. Don't that is just it is weird as all hell, but I think it's fascinating and I love it so much. So, I mean, man, I am so very excited to continue the series, and because the ending of this book, oh man, it was amazing. I cannot wait to see the consequences of the ending, and I've been told Green Angel Tower is even better, and I'm just so absolutely excited. I adore these characters now. That's it. This book finally cemented them all. I was already nails in. I was already like knee deep into this story and with these characters, but now I'm all in. Also, I should say one more thing before I go. Or before I leave Stone of Farewell. Miriam L. I love her in certain senses. I think she's very similar to Simon. But I do worry about what her character is going to be like. I love her. I think she's fascinating. I think she's interesting. But depending on how she reacts and responds to the actions of this book, to what happens in this book, is going to change how whether or not I can for Miriam L alone. If I don't like how she's written, I'm very confident that I will dock a ton of points into Green Angel Tower. But if she's written well in response to what's happened, I think Miriam L will become one of my favorite characters of all time. She is just so fascinating, so interesting, but also there's room to see where she goes. Same with Simon, of course, but I think more so with Miriam L. I need to see where she goes for that finale, I guess. And I'm very, very curious. So, that is The Stone of Farewell. And now, I didn't realize that was there. Can't see that anymore. That was my mouse, by the way. The other thing that I read was Soul Eater. I read up to where I have all the perfect editions, and that is volume 12, or if you're looking at the normal volumes, that would be volume 18. This is a very interesting series. I love the gothic vibes, the way it deals with overcoming your worst fears and tackles these ideas and notions is very unique. I think it's not like it hasn't been done before, but I love the atmosphere. I love the characters. I love the tone. I love all these what's the word? I just love the mysteries. I think the mysteries for this series too are so enticing because we also have grown to love these characters, and then the mysteries that are like being built up for the finale. I'm like, ooh, what's coming? What's coming? What are we gonna do? What are we gonna do? And I'm just so interested in seeing where the rest of this series goes. So I need to continue immediately. But that's really all I have for Soul Eater. I don't have much because otherwise it'd just be a spoiler. So now, third thing that I read was Jujutsu Kaisen. I picked up from where I don't. I might have a physical volume somewhere. I don't actually think I have it in this room, if at all. But I I've had an interesting relationship with Jujutsu Kaisen because I watched the show way back in whenever it finished airing. I don't remember, but a couple months passed. Then I decided to read the manga, and I caught up to the manga at the time where there was like a month break, or actually, the author was on an indefinite hiatus. And then I remember reading it weekly and thinking, this sucks. Like I honestly, I I was honestly so disappointed that I considered just outright dropping it, because there were moments where I was reading the series, and even though I love Jujutsu Kaisen, I was like, this isn't as good as it used to be. I don't know what's going on. And then, of course, with the new season that's coming out, season 3, I was like, you know what? Let me give it another shot. So I gave it another shot from where the show dropped off the other week and just kept reading. And I'm very glad that I did, because I think this was it just suffered from weekly reading. Because now I think there's so much interesting nuance and depth to that story with all the Buddhist themes that that I've been told are in there. Like I don't know if Mahatma Garma is the name of the character. The main character of Jujutsu Kaisen, Yuji, is like a parallel for Mahatma Garma. I think I'm probably butchering the pronunciation of that. But I think it's so fascinating. The man who, what is it? He guides the sinners on their way to hell or something like that. And I think that's fascinating. But the interesting thing about Jujutsu Kaisen is the way it wants to handle life, the way it views life, and the way it asks about life. The notion that it wants its reader to ask, what does a good life mean? What does that necessarily entail? What does a good death mean? And what is the value of life alongside what defines good, what defines bad? And I think he does a very good job of making evil characters evil. Like they're indisputably evil, like a Sauron evil or something like that. And yet they are tragic figures. It's like on a surface reading, you're gonna get, he's evil. But if you look deeply, you go, well, is he evil in that sense? He makes sense. You understand where these bad guys are coming from, and it makes it so fascinating. And I loved it so much more on a reread, to the point where I'm like, that was actually great. So I just wanted to bring that up because I think it's so interesting how much my opinion changed, because I hated it. Like I honestly, I thought it was garbage before, and when I thought back on those two big arcs that finished off the series, I was like, this was horrible. Like, really, I thought it was horrible. But on a reread, I'm like, that was actually really good. That was now. I do think there were flaws. I hated some things. There were some things, like, for example, the planning. Oh, God, I hate it when stories do this. It's like we're in the middle of a big fight, and then we get a flashback to where they were planning this thing out, and then this thing comes in and, like, woohoo! yeah, sure, you planned it ahead of time, but I didn't get to see the fact that you planned it ahead of time. I just don't like it, you know? I like it when an author provides the materials for a character to reach a conclusion, if that makes sense. So, in the middle of a fight, I like them to not be able to pull something out of their pocket. I want them to be able to take what they have, use their wits, and be able to outsmart the enemy. I think that's what a good fight is. Otherwise, I just don't like it. That's it. Now, that's probably all I have to say for Jujutsu Kaisen. I have critiques, but at the end, I think thematically, Jujutsu Kaisen was actually just wonderful. Just absolutely outstanding. Anyways, for what I am currently reading, that would be Hidden City by Michelle West. I know I talked about this a little while back, but now this is my dedicated read, and I am enjoying it so much. Jewel and her journey is so delightful. I love sweet little Jewel, who is naive and very, very, very trusting, to the point of it being painful at times. But I also love her relationship with Wrath. Maybe it's a father figure relationship, but at the same time, Wrath is such an interesting character. And another thing I love so very much about the way this series or this book is being handled is that there are, number one, fascinating magical mysteries. There's like those interesting mysteries about the past, the lore, the history of the world. Very fascinating mysteries. And then we also get things like this dynamic between Jewel and Wrath, where each of these characters. Actually, I take that back. So, I was going to say that each of these characters are drip fed information about one another to each other. And it's kind of true, but more. It's more on Wrath's end. I think that Jewel, who is this kid that he found and took in, is very interesting because we know pretty much everything about her. But Wrath, we know so little about, and he hates giving us information. He hates giving the reader information, and thus he hates giving Jewel information. Or I guess you could say it's the other way around. He hates giving the girl information about himself, so he hates giving us information. And I think it's so fascinating. Because a lot of these characters were being drip fed information about who they are, what they've been through, and we are asked to piece it together. We are asked to put it all into a puzzle piece and then see the picture. And I think, of course, by the end of the book, things will be a lot more visible for these characters. But I'm very interested in seeing where it all goes because the dynamic between Jewel and Wrath is so interesting. Because Wrath is made out to be this person who, if this was any other kid, he would have left them for dead on the streets. He did not care. But for some reason, this kid, Jewel, just took his attention. And he's endeared to her, or she's endearing to him. And even though he wants to lose his mind with her at times, I think it's so sweet. Especially for a man who seems so isolated and of his own volition to being forced to leave his isolation because of this little girl. And I think it's wonderful, like father-daughter relationship. I think it's so sweet and I love it so very much. And that is it for The Hidden City for now. I'm going to continue reading The Hidden City, of course. But I think it's time I talk about the other thing that I'm reading currently, and that is the novella The Ice, in preparation for Of Empires and Dust. Now, I'm just going to talk about this real quickly. I haven't read much of it. It's very interesting to see this because it's a backstory for a certain thing that happened and has changed the entire course of the series, which is The Bound and the Broken by Ryan Cahill, by the way. If you haven't read it, I highly recommend it. It's absolutely amazing, especially if you like Dragon Rider fantasy. And so that's all I'm going to say about this for now, because I'm going to talk about it a little bit more in a minute. So, what am I going to read after the Hidden City? That is the Walled City. So we go from the Hidden City to the Walled City. And that is the final, or actually not final, penultimate book in the Triumphary Revelation series. And I'm so interested in reading this series, or reading this penultimate book, because number one, I've heard it's the best book outside Sordanian. Number two, I love this series so much, and the ending of Godspear was so phenomenal that I cannot wait to continue this series. Like, I am on the edge of my seat to just keep going. I need to know what some of these characters are up to. What is Durillion up to? What are these guys plotting? And I'm so very excited to see the finale of this story, because this is pretty much, we're entering the end game. And I'm very excited for it, because Real Lord will then be releasing in April, and it's going to be amazing. So I'm so very excited. And then, of course, after Walled City, I'm going to read one of these two books. Maybe. So I say I will. I might read one of these two books. Either The Left Hand of Darkness or The House of Suns. I know I talked about it earlier, but I do want to read one of these two books very soon. I know I mentioned Flowers for Algernon. I do kind of want to read it, but I'm leaning more towards one of these two. I also just love these colors. You know, I love these covers. And Left Hand of Darkness and then House of Suns. It's like, how can you not love these covers? They're such banger covers, you know? You look at these covers and you're like, look at that cover. That's a cover I see this in the store, I'm like, buy. Just forget about it. Buy. It's one of those books where you see it in the store shelves and you're like, no, I can't hold myself back. I have to buy it, but I shouldn't. But I'm going to do it anyways. Boom! And then you bring it to the store register and you're like, oh, yes, I'm so happy. Anyways, and it's going to be one of those two, maybe, because I am doing a buddy read with Chance Dillon and Jake from Nerd Level Rising on Of Empires and Dust. Woo! I'm so excited for this book. I've been, Bound and the Broken is one of my favorite series of all time. And, getting to finally read the penultimate book in the series is so exciting. The only reason I haven't done it yet was because, number one, I started with an ebook. Number two, this is a really long book. And number three, I'm kind of afraid that I don't remember everything in the first three books, and I don't feel like rereading them now. Because if I'm going to reread the series, I want to reread it like from beginning to end, you know? I want to experience the finale. And that's going to be such a wonderful experience. So, I'm truly so excited for Of Empires and Dust. I don't have I don't have much more to say, but especially with the ice, I found myself really missing these characters, this cast, and this world, because there's a very distinct feeling to being in the Bound and the Broken's world, and I love it. I just love it. That's it. And so I'm very excited to continue my journey in this world. So, all right, that's about all I have for you guys today. Thank you all so much for watching. Tell me, have you read any of the books that I have read here? Are you going to read any of these books? Or what have you been reading in general? I love to hear it. I love to talk to you guys in the comments. And I will see you all next time. I hope you all have an absolutely fantastic day. And I will come back with another video, probably on Wars of Light and Shadow. So, see you next time.